Welcome back to Touring the AFC South. I'm your host, Mike Patton, and wanted to kind of switch it up a little bit off of football and injuries and go towards media. Of course, you know media can be a funny game, especially when you're not equipped to handle it. You can see plenty of players getting out there and saying whatever. Of course, there have been some scenarios that popped up in the NFL and especially in the AFC South. So with that being said, I wanted to bring someone on that is a PR genius. Yeah, I'd said genius.
Thank you.
To talk about how some of these situations should be handled. She is the Washington football team writer and reporter for the 3-Point Conversion, writer for the Sports Journey, 1/4 of the Triple W podcast, and she is the PR wizard that you need. Welcome, Carita Parks, to the show.
Thanks, Mike. That's quite the introduction. I appreciate it.
Well, I had a little time on my hands. You know,
all accurate, all accurate.
So for those that don't know, how did you get involved in PR and writing?
So, man, it goes back a long time ago. When I was younger, I was always into writing. I would write stories. I wanted to be in broadcast journalism, oddly enough. So I would actually write my own news scripts. So writing has been a part of my fabric from such a young age. And now I do it. And I do the analytics because I want people to make sure that they understand I know what I'm talking about. But also, I love just being a storyteller. Like, that's what I like about my writing now. But writing started for me as I was younger. But that evolved into getting me into PR because as I got older and I had to determine what route I wanted to take in college, I decided to do PR because I wanted to do something that was a little bit more multidimensional, where I could use a lot of my different skill sets. So in PR, you have to be a very strong writer, have to be a very strong storyteller. Wanting to be in broadcast journalism, I still wanted to work with media, even though I was making a shift. And a huge part of being in PR is working with the media and being able to frame those stories in a way that puts your client or the organization you're working with in a favorable light. So it just kind of evolved from being a writer when I was young, wanting to be in broadcast journalism, and then making a decision to go into PR where I could, like I said, use a variety of my skill sets. So that's what I pursued in school, got my Bachelor of Science in Communications, and PR was my focus.
Gotcha. Yeah. I didn't go for communications, but thinking back on it now, I've got a marketing degree, by the way. But Thinking back on it now, I probably should have went to communications, though, because I do like to talk and write and things like that. But at that point in time, I just didn't know what I wanted to do. But I did like marketing, so I knew that.
Marketing is a good degree to have, though. It's very useful.
Kind of, sort of. But
own, I guess.
What's that?
I said to each his own, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. It was definitely interesting at the time I came out of college. Yeah. That's all I'm gonna say on that one. As far as the PR business and things like that, can you give just a few things that you've done to give people a little bit of the level of expertise that you have in this business?
Yeah, so it's kind of two sides to my PR experience. And I really want to say that for me, I'm actually I call myself a communications professional mostly because my experiences range from everything from PR to branding to strategy to different aspects of communications. PR is what I love to do the most and the strongest. So in my professional career, prior to starting my own business, I worked for clients such as Visit Florida, doing their PR and marketing. I've worked with the World Golf Foundation in the First Tee, so I have a background in golf communications. I've even worked for the Environmental Protection Agency, which is a totally different realm. And then for my PR business, I've taken a lot of my skills. That's where I get to do what I want to do. And just, freestyle a little bit. But my main focus is sports. So I've worked with clients such as the Bottom Line Sports Show that was produced by Penny Hardaway. So I got a chance to work with a legend, and it was a really great experience. I've done work with the Super Bowl, different events with the Super Bowl, also Black Enterprise or golf and tennis weekend. I've also gone on the other side of the spectrum, and I've led PR for an event called Art on the Vine in Martha's Vineyard. I've worked with an event planner, and I shouldn't call her an event planner. She's an event designer, and we got spots on like Fox 5, just major morning shows in the area, USA Today. So that's just a little bit of my experience. Oh, I can't forget the Donovan Darius Foundation, because that was one of my favorite projects. Donovan Darius was a former Jaguar player. So I worked with him to rebuild and re-envision his foundation, developed a communication strategy for him, rebranded the organization. So they came out of it with a whole new logo and vision. So that was a really fun project. And that's just a little bit of what I've done in my career, just a little something.
Oh, so you would say just a little something. There's a lot, but
there was a lot, and that wasn't even everything.
Now, we did talk a little PR, and of course, we'll get into more of that a little later.
Yeah.
But of course, we got to talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars, your hometown team. Yep. For those that don't know, Carita is from Duval.
Yeah. Let them know, Duval County.
All right. So how are you feeling about the team so far through what you've seen and heard?
Oh, so interestingly enough, I went home for the first time after COVID, ended up being home for the Jaguars' first preseason game. So I had an opportunity to see the team and Trevor Lawrence in person. I have mixed feelings right now. They didn't do much in the first 2 preseason games. And granted, I understand it's the preseason. You don't want to show all your cards. My biggest concern is the offense just did not move well. I want to say in that first game, they only had, I think it was 86 yards of offense. So they just haven't been moving the ball very well. And then they did have a really good game against Dallas, but those were mostly Dallas backups. But the great thing about that is they got some momentum. I think it was important for Trevor Lawrence to get some momentum and some confidence going into the season. But I think it's going to be a rough go for the Jaguars this year, which you expect with a rookie quarterback. I don't care if it is really the first round draft pick, but I think it's going to be a little bit rougher than I was anticipating, just based on what I've seen.
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask you this one. You already answered this question. I said, do you have any hopes of them at least being competitive this year?
So I don't sound like that question. I think they'll be competitive in some games, but do I think we're going to see a consistent competitiveness from the Jaguars? Not this year, in my opinion. Like I said, I think it's going to be a little rough. It's going to be another rebuild year. We thought Trevor would, or I shouldn't say we, I'm sure the fans thought Trevor was going to come in and solve all the problems, but you got a new coach coming from college, trying to still learn the NFL. Then you have a first round draft pick coming from college, trying to learn the NFL. And then you have all these new pieces. So it's going to be an interesting year, I think.
All right. Now, I'm going to ask you this question. I'm pretty sure I'm going to get a pretty honest answer on this.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest.
If you had to predict their record, what would you say their record would end up being at the end of the season?
So I looked at their schedule, and they play some tough teams. So based on their schedule, I say 5-12, to be honest. I think that they can beat Houston probably twice, because they're not looking too good either. The Colts, I think maybe once. It depends on the status of Carson Wentz. I think if Carson is not playing that first game, they'll probably win that game. If he's playing the next game, I don't know that they'll be able to be as competitive, but I definitely think they can at least win one against Indianapolis. The Bengals, I think they could beat that's a maybe for me, but I think that they can beat the Bengals. The Jets, I gave them the Jets as well. And I'm trying to think the last one I gave him. I guess
Don't
that's all
have
I
my
gave him.
schedule in
Yeah,
front
because
of
I
me.
gave him Houston twice. I gave him Houston twice.
Okay.
That's what it was. Yeah.
I'll say this. I actually think that Houston will beat them in the first game. Just because they'll be I just think because they'll be, the us against the world mentality will work one game out of the
Yeah.
season for them. But
I mean, it's definitely possible. But I think it's going to be somewhere around 5 wins or less. I mean, the Titans, they always struggle with the Titans, but especially, you got a rookie quarterback. I think they're going to definitely capitalize on that. I remember they played the Seahawks, the Broncos, 49ers, Cardinals.
Yep, Rams.
The Browns. So there's gonna be some, and they played the Browns in the preseason.
They play
And
the Rams.
the game I went to. So yeah.
Yeah, the Rams are going to be tough too.
Oh yeah, the Rams and Jalen Ramsey. He's going to try to show out, even though it's a whole different fabric of a team. But he's going to try to show out. So the Rams are going to be tough too.
Right. Oh boy. We went to Duval and we talked about the Jacksonville Jaguars, but we got to move on and talk about a little PR side of things. And of course, no team is definitely thinking about how their PR is going to react to a few things in the Tennessee Titans right now. I mean, you have COVID case after COVID case. Kind of reminds people of last season.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, in light of what happened last season, I mean, what would you think their PR team would be kind of digging into or talking about to kind of limit some of the damage?
I think the PR team, so one good thing that they've done, and the only thing I think I've really seen, is they did put out there through their GM the vaccination rate. I think they said they were like 97, 98% vaccinated. So that was good because I think initially the perception was, well, are they vaccinated? Are they not vaccinated? So they did a good job in putting that information out there. What I think they need to do is also just talk about some of the protocols that they are following, because when you have such a large outbreak, even though the players are vaccinated and the coach is vaccinated, and then you had an outbreak last year, the thought is like, what protocols are you guys not following to have such a large outbreak? And I said something on Twitter and someone was like, well, it's a pandemic. True. But if you look at these other teams, yes, guys are going on the COVID list. Guys are going into the health and safety protocols, but not at such a large rate. The Titans are literally having outbreaks. So there's definitely something. So I would definitely want to talk about how we're following NFL protocols, this protocol, that protocol. I would be specific because, like I said, it appears that you're not following a protocol of some sort. And I mean, even though you're vaccinated, you could still get COVID, but it does seem like someone who didn't have COVID, are the unvaccinated folks wearing masks because they should be? I mean, that's a question. So, I mean, there's a lot of questions, I think, and they just need to put some answers out there. But they did a good job, like I said, putting their vaccination rate out there. But I think that it might be more of a protocol issue.
Got you. Understood. Yeah, definitely not the talk the Titans want to hear this year. Yeah. Now, of course, not the talk they want to hear in Houston either is about Deshaun Watson and what's going on there. Now, of course, there's no determination when Deshaun Watson will be playing or if he will be traded or anything like that. Yeah. How do you think the team is handling that PR situation there?
I think they're doing the best that they can. They've been a little more quieter about it. Their stance has been more so we're going to let the legal situation play out. And being that they still want to keep him, that's really all they can do. They have kept him out of the sight of cameras. I haven't seen his face personally. They've kept him out of the sight of the cameras. Seems like they're keeping him low key. And that's really all they can do is quiet right now. So they don't want to do anything to bring that back up. But they've decided that their stance is going to be let the legal process play out. there's really not much else they can do at this point in time. I think that's the right thing to do. But what I do like is the fact that they're not still operating with Deshaun like nothing's going on, because they're very well aware something is going on. And like I said, they've been keeping him fairly low key, which is the right thing to do.
Yeah, definitely can say that. You did see him a couple times out at practice, things like that. They did put him at safety one practice, which I don't understand that. But I will say, yeah, they definitely, for the last couple of weeks, you really have not seen him anywhere near the Texans practice.
Yeah, and that's how it has to be, because the fact of the matter is we don't know how this is going to play out. They don't know how it's going to play out. They don't want to take the chance of everything being okay, and then they let go of, even though there was contention there anyway, but let go of a very talented quarterback. But the fact of the matter is, whether he did it or not, there's so much damage to his reputation at this point, and that's the sad thing. If he gets off, nobody's going to forget 20 women, came after him for sexual assault. And then if he did it, obviously that's going to look bad. So there's going to be a lot for him, depending on how this goes, there's going to be a lot of repair that needs to be done.
Right. And, one thing I had talked about as well is, honestly, a lot of people keep popping up with trade rumors and things like that. Mm-hmm. But in all honesty, they can't really send him anywhere at this point because nobody knows what's going on. So he really doesn't have a lot of trade value with that even going on. So the prospect of people thinking that Houston's hanging on to him, that's really not necessarily the case, because who's going to want somebody they don't know who's going to play?
Right. And not only that, because I saw those trade rumors, and the thing about it is, it's not just about who's going to want him not knowing if he can play. Why, as an organization, would you want to assume the risk? Because if you take him and these allegations are true, now you have to combat and you have to deal with the backlash. As far as I'm concerned, let the Texans deal with that. Don't assume the risk until you know how this is going to play out. That's my stance from a PR perspective. It doesn't make sense. It's unnecessary. No one needs to win that bad, in my opinion, to take that on right now. Because then, as I said, if this doesn't go the right way, now you have to come out with the statements and you have to try to protect your reputation. It just makes no sense.
Right. From a business perspective, it doesn't make sense either. But,
exactly. Both sides don't make sense.
All right. Now, when it comes to his legal and PR team, do you think they're kind of, do you have some kind of things they are taking, the right way or not taking the right way?
So I think it depends on what's going on, right? So in the beginning of this, we saw more statements from his legal team, like, our client did not do this, so to speak. Then we saw some statements from Deshaun as well. And then everything sort of went quiet. And so at the beginning of this, they did what they needed to do. They spoke on it. They, basically said the same thing. They're going to let the legal process play out. Our client didn't do it. That's the right thing to do. But now that it's kind of gotten quiet, there's no need to say anything, really. You don't have a reason to bring anything up. Now, what I do think they need to be prepared for is, because these trade rumors are still kind of swirling, that has brought the situation back up a bit, because I've seen comments on Twitter from people like, same thing we were talking about. Why would a team want Deshaun right now? He's going through an active legal situation. We don't know what happened. So I think they just need to be prepared. If this starts to come up again, are you going to need to address it? So it's more, in my opinion, internally, just being prepared for possibly having to address it again, but there's no need to bring something up right now. And like I said, the best thing for Deshaun is to stay low key, to stay out the spotlight. You have no reason to say anything right now. There's just a lot going on. It's an FBI investigation. So yeah, we'll see them start talking again as we get a decision, or if there's some events and activities leading up to that decision. Then we're going to start seeing them be vocal again.
Gotcha. Now, of course, you kind of answered this question, but do you see him landing on any other team at any point this season, or do you see him ending up on the commissioner's exempt list?
I
Which
keep
one do you
kind
see?
of answering questions in my other answers. I don't see him ending up with another team. I'm not even sure if I really see him ending up on the commissioner's exempt list. I think the Texans will probably just kind of continue to handle him the way they are now, where he's maybe, like you said, maybe at practice or attending meetings and such. And that's where I see it right now.
Gotcha. Well, I thank you for coming on and giving the PR side of things, the PR expert side of things.
I always love talking PR. I always say I feel very blessed to be able to bring my PR side into sports. You're not always able to have the best of both worlds, but I do. So I always love talking PR, and I always love talking sports. But if I could do them together, even better.
Now, I will say, go ahead and let everyone know things you're working on and where they can find you on social media.
Okay, well, you can find me on social media across all platforms at Carita Parks. That's essentially my umbrella. So everything that I'm doing, it appears on those social media pages. But you can also find my Washington football team work on the 3pointconversion.com. You can find my Wizards and Mystics work on sportsjourney.com. I also have my own brand, Double Take Sports, where I just go outside the box and talk about whatever I want to talk about. So be sure to check that out. On social media is at DBL Take Sports. That's on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. And the website is dbltakesports.com. That's Double Take Sports. Also, as Mike mentioned, I am 1/4 of the Triple W podcast. You can check out our social media at the Triple W Pod on all platforms. And I believe, no. Don't forget to follow Parks PR on Instagram at Parks PR. So I know that was a lot. That's why I said at Carita C. Parks is really my umbrella, and I drop everything there, as well as the social media feeds. But I also wanted to make sure I mentioned them straight up as well.
Gotcha. You know, I was over here taking notes. I got stuff written down over here. I got a little marker beside me. But I will say thank you again for coming on. Of course, we'll be looking out for the Washington football team work, especially at the 3-point conversion. Definitely we'll be looking out for that because, of course, you have Chase Young up there. That's going to be probably wrecking shop again this year.
There's always never a dull moment in Washington. You know, before Chase Young, when, Washington wasn't doing as well, people would be like, why do you want to cover Washington? First of all, I don't care. I love what I get an opportunity to do. But regardless, there's just always something going on with this team. So I love it.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on again. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Touring the AFC South. I'm your host, Mike Patton. We're out.
Thanks for having me.